Coming up on Smart Tech today, Matthew Casanelli and I start things out by talking about Ziggy, the new name for Amazon's voice assistant, the new voice that's also available, and we do some updates, including thread support on Eero, a lot of stuff from Google, including some shortcuts you can check out on Android. We talk about Apple Watch and how you can keep track of your health stats, some HomeKit news, and we share how we had to reset our smart homes. Not fun, but we got there in the end. It's all that plus so much more coming up on Smart Tech Today.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to Smart Tech Today. The show's just about to kick off, but I wanted to say, if you've got questions or feedback you want to send to us, send that to stt@twit.tv. Matthew and I will soon have a question and answer episode, and so we'd love for you to get in your questions. So stay tuned for the show, but I just wanted to get that out there, stt@twit.tv. Thanks. Hello, and welcome to Smart Tech Today, where we explain the exciting, dynamic, and sometimes confusing subject that is the Internet of Things. I am one of your hosts, Micah Sargent.
And I am your other host, Matthew Casanelli. Hello, Micah. How's it going today?
Hello, Matthew Casanelli. It is going well today. How are you?
I'm doing good. If anyone's watching, you might notice that I've switched things up. My mic is now on the left side, so everything's backwards, and I don't know what that means for the show, but I didn't intend to go down that route. But
here we are.
It's a little bit different, so
things have changed, yet so much remains the same.
We're moving forward, you know?
Keep moving forward while staying stationary. All right, let's talk about our first bit of news/feedback. It's an email that we got. George from Yonkers, New York, who wrote in and said, "Hello, Micah and Matthew. I love your show. I wanted to comment on one of the possible origins for Ziggy." And this is me stepping in for a second to explain. If you didn't catch last week's episode or you didn't hear, Amazon has introduced a new wake word to join the other wake words for Amazon's virtual assistant. This new one is called Ziggy. So this is a potential origin for the word Ziggy. Ziggy is the name of the computer that AI uses to help Sam on Quantum Leap, which makes sense as a wake word, especially given, and again, this is me editorializing, especially given Amazon's use of computer, which of course is a reference to Star Trek. However, when I checked with my sci-fi expert, I found out that the Ziggy computer on the show identified as being female. So the story is not as cut and dry as I first thought. Thanks, George from Yonkers, New York. And of course, George is referencing the fact that the new wake word Ziggy came at the same time as a new voice that is masculine presenting was given for the Echo devices. And so I have one here that currently answers to ALEXA and has a female presenting voice. So I will do a quick thing and ask it how its day is, and then I'm going to change the voice. So here we go. How are you doing today?
I'm feeling great, because I just got the Kraken back in its cage. So whatever you do, please don't release it.
The Kraken is back in the cage. That's good to know. All right, now I'm going to do the following thing. Bear with me here.
It's plenty loud.
Change your voice.
Okay, you're all set. I'll be the voice you hear when you speak to this device. If you'd like to change how you wake me up, you can also change your wake word. Okay, you can call me Ziggy on this device in a few seconds.
So this often takes a little bit of time for the wake word to change, and you can see a yellow ring at the top that's kind of going, all right, we're processing.
It's and like downloading the new voice, basically.
Exactly. So now I should be able to say, Ziggy, tell me a story.
The Bandit. A knight rode through the sunlit forest with his trusty squire and solid steed.
Ziggy, stop.
That's
we
awesome.
Don't need to wait for that whole story, but yeah. Now Ziggy has, right, can't say that. Never mind.
immediately it's going to be a problem.
All right,
it's the same thing. You can never refer to it without spelling it.
That sits on my desk. Yeah, you just had that issue. That sits on my desk normally, so it's not normally a problem. I've muted the microphone, so we're good to go. Ziggy, new name that happened to come along at the same time as the new voice, and now you can use that new voice and new name all without ever having to go into the app. But you can go into the app to make those changes too. I was talking to John Slanina before the show, and he was running into an issue as one of his devices would not let him change the wake word to Ziggy. Only the other devices in the household would be were able to be changed. And so then you kind of have this, which one am I supposed to say? That you say the wrong one, and then one in the other room lights up or, hears you. That can be a bit of an issue. So I'm curious, where the rollout is happening, where it's not, and particularly if you have third-party devices that support ALEXA voice, where you don't have the ability to update the wake word at all, and ALEXA is the only wake word that you can use. So there is some kind of some spots left open in all of this, but I like the new name. I've changed all of the ones that I have in my house to Ziggy, and I'm trying to use that going forward just because it's different and fun, whether it's a reference to Quantum Leap or to the comic, or I like to think of it as Ziggy Stardust. Wherever it comes from, it's a good name.
They didn't necessarily also say that the new masculine voice was named Ziggy. Like that was a pretty separate part of the announcement. So it's possible that this is still a reference to that, despite it being, if it was female, that almost makes more sense because ALEXA is also. So I don't know if that makes any sort of difference, but
people tied some of the news articles kind of tied the two together, but it wasn't as if Amazon said, listen to our new assistant Ziggy, and then played the masculine presenting voice. That's not how it happened. So
exactly, like adding a male assistant is like the opposite of what they've been generally trying to do. So I'm glad, that's just an interesting insight. And I was saying before the show, that does sound like a reference that someone at Amazon would make to Quantum Leap as opposed to something that's more timely. I don't know. If you've got, I guess Cortana, but that's already taken. So
yeah, makes sense.
Or was at least.
All right. Up next, if you've got an iOS device, Amazon is now giving you the ability to add Amazon's virtual assistant to your home screen by way of a widget. So you can get a widget Ziggy or a widget ALEXA, which when you tap on it will let you do ALEXA things.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I got it set up on my device, and I even actually have like a smart home screen. So it was a perfect addition because that's exactly what I would want to do on a screen like that. And I think it is just another step in Amazon's strategy that they laid out more clearly last week with our ALEXA live demonstration and everything, but also that what we were just noticing over time about how they were slowly adding features to the phone. And I used to be a much bigger doubter about how they were going to bring their services everywhere without being on the phone. So being directly on your home screen makes a ton of sense. And like the focus modes for iOS 15 could even give people more of an opportunity to use widgets like that. So I'm definitely going to have a big video about the hundreds of widgets that I have on the 15 home screens that I have. So
when you talk to somebody at night, or I don't know if you work a graveyard shift during the day, and you say, good night. Sometimes you say good night. Sometimes you say, I'm going to bed. Sometimes you say, see you tomorrow. Sometimes you say, buenas noches. Sometimes you say
bonne nuit.
All these different things. There are different ways that we say good night. And now ALEXA, or excuse me, is it ALEXA? Yeah, ALEXA. I want to make sure it wasn't the Google Assistant that we'd moved on to, will support multiple phrases so that if you've got a routine that, maybe plays the weather forecast for tomorrow and then turns off all of the lights in your house and then wishes you well for the evening and massages your feet. Oh, wait, no, it doesn't do that yet. If it does all those other things, then you can use different words so that you're not having to do that little bit of cognitive cycling before bed going, wait, what is it that I'm supposed to say? You can kind of feel more comfortable going, hey, good night, pal. and it will respond to that. I think this is smart, but you have to input the phrases by hand.
Manually.
Yeah. So I get it. I understand why this is and why it's difficult for it to go the route of assuming here. But I wish there was just a tad more AI. If around this time each night I am, doing that good night routine, then if I say something that is sort of like good night, you could probably make the assumption, given I'm talking, like, I don't normally go, Ziggy, good night. The Google Assistant, good night. Siri, let me tuck you in.
Say good night to each of your assistants.
Yeah. Those are specifically for triggering routines or scenes. And so one could, in theory, tie those things together. So I guess I'm complaining that this could be a little bit more smart. But for the folks who really love their routines, then I think this is good because you'll have multiple options for doing so. But I almost think that opens me up to being more confused and going, wait, what is it that I can say? Instead of just feeling comfortable getting used to saying good night every night.
Yeah, I'm trying to find, I was just looking at my notes from last week because they did announce the feature that it'll start to be able to ask you, oh, did you mean for this to be like a routine or this skill, and kind of guess.
Yeah, we should actually talk about that in general.
So.
Ambient computing is something that Amazon, we talked a little bit about this last week, that Amazon is focusing on here. The idea that a lot of this stuff just happens on its own. And so it's not going to be something where you are having to actively interact, that it will just go, it will start to see patterns and it will suggest things. So hunches, which are, for some people who use this regularly, are already a very powerful thing that they use. But for it to get even better at these hunches and start to get smarter at these hunches. And I think that that's one place where Amazon has really stepped ahead of the competition, because the hunches feel more kind of active and forthright than we see from Apple's platform and Google's platform, where they really are trying to kind of let this ambient computing thing happen.
Yeah, I do. I don't know. I mean, Google, especially with the Google Home, they are doing a lot of at their developer conference too, they were talking about putting more on the displays. So I think that's at least, Amazon definitely notifies you, which is a whole different step. But I think it makes more sense for them because you're buying a voice device a lot more as opposed to maybe more of a home thing. And then Apple's is kind of tied into your iPhone and everything like that. And I just feel like they're a lot more strict on what they would let ping you in the house and things like that. I do actually, I'm trying not to be defensive because my natural reaction is, well, what about Siri suggestions and my whole shortcut stuff? Because I actually do use that a lot. And that stuff is getting better for me, especially with home screen widgets and
this
things
is
like
where
that.
I say, I'm really glad it works for you, but I think that it's because you're a power user that it does.
I feel like it works worse for me because I do 900.
Then I guess it's bad for all of us, because for me, it's like the same 3 suggestions over and over again, and none of them are things I actually want to do. I was just talking to Joe Rosensteel on the podcast that we do together on Helpful Suggestions, and he was talking about how it is the same 4 things over and over and over and over and over again. And even if he tries to clear it away, it still will be those same things. So, because I know Siri suggestions is kind of like hunches, but I think it's almost because it's with hunches, it's focused specifically on kind of smart home routine type stuff, whereas Siri's suggestions are focused on so many different things. And so I don't want a shortcut to text the same person over and over again because
those ones are terrible.
Yeah, and I don't need a shortcut to launch this web page over and over again. I think the one Siri shortcut that I use that actually makes me happy that pops up, and I also wonder, I'm also kind of suspicious that it might be something that has to do with a shortcut I downloaded from you, is when I Tuesdays and Wednesdays, when I produce MacBreak Weekly and Windows Weekly, I can swipe down from the top of the screen to access Spotlight Search on my iPad. And instead of having to then start to type in TWIT to get the Twitch app and then hit enter and then go to Twitch stream, there is a shortcut there that says go to Twitch stream. And that happens every time on those times.
Nice.
So,
That's
I
cool.
think that's partially because of that shortcut that you made that has that go visit Twitch stream. But I don't know. But in any case, that's like the one Siri suggestion that's ever been helpful for me. The rest of them,
That's totally fair.
I don't need that. I don't want that.
I do definitely use more, so there's a higher chance of me just finding. I think it's also, I noticed it's a little bit better in iOS 15. It wasn't always like, wow, this is amazing every single time I swipe open or something like that. But it's definitely been getting a little bit better for me. So that's fair. I just wanted to mention it. I feel like sometimes I like avoid shortcuts on the show because it's like not technically smart home, but it is. I am just like an expert at it, and so like there's a whole. If you do Siri suggestions on the home screen, you can have entire pages full of what it'll just recommend apps that you might be using, and I found that there's a lot of interesting stuff. So I'm gonna share more about that when iOS 15 launches too, because I think there's some interesting strategies. I mean, especially even with that ALAXA widget, like I like that stuff a lot, and so if it recommends or those actions to you when it makes sense, that's a win for anybody, regardless of which smart home thing you have. Like Google's got great suggestions as well. They do, honestly, like at a certain point, some of them are better than Apple's. Like Apple hasn't done them a lot. And like you said, recommends sending the same message to somebody over and over again. And it's like, I don't care about that. Those ones are silly. So I can always admit that in the smart home and like recommendation region, Apple's definitely still like lagging behind the others. Let's move on.
Okay. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about was the ongoing discussion around Eero and its support for threads. So we've talked before about this, how it kind of bounces back and forth from time to time, where sometimes it seems like Eero supports thread, and then sometimes it kind of gets buried in the muck. And somebody put together a piece because there was just a firmware update for Eero. I think they call it a software update though, for Eero devices to Eero OS 6.4. And with that, it included DFS channel support on Eero Pro 6 and Eero 6 in some European regions, thread support for Eero Pro 6 and Eero 6, automatic channel selection improvements, device roaming improvements, and performance and stability improvements. So immediately, the Redditors took to Reddit to talk about what that meant and whether you were going to get thread support and how it was going to work. And somebody from Thread responded in that Reddit to say, hey, this is coming now very soon. And you can head to this support center page to keep an eye on what devices are going to support it. What's interesting is when we talked to Jonathan Huey about Thread, and I mentioned the Eero, he was talking about how a lot of this stuff is meant to happen in the background kind of automatically. And the Eero method at the time was a little bit more active as opposed to passive, where you would scan a QR code to add the device to the network. And Eero, in its early implementation of Thread, had done it in a more active way. And so they kind of had to rework everything so that it is a more passive way of doing things. So there's some OAuth stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and that's all getting worked out. So I updated to Eero OS 6.4 and tried to play around with it. I couldn't get any of it to do anything. So I don't know if it's just, one, I'm running beta on some things. Sometimes it takes a minute for everything to get all worked out. Sometimes there could be thread stuff happening that could be causing kind of back and forth. I don't know, but as it stands, we're still early days in terms of what you can or can't do with Eero, but Eero's people are saying, hey, we're right on the edge. We're right on the cusp. It's coming soon. So I'm going to keep an eye on this, and I know that the Reddit will be continuing to keep an eye on this as we get more information there. I also wanted to mention I spoke with Wise because Wise makes several products that are kind of low cost but still great versions of more expensive products. And one of the things that they make is a robot vacuum. And in fact, I have a hands-on tech episode reviewing that robot vacuum. So if anybody out there has that robot vacuum and they're going, why can't I use Alexa to talk to it? To tell it to start vacuuming, because that's one of the problems I have in my house. I will get a message from my partner who says, can you make, and it's always the same thing. I wonder if he's got like a template now. Can you make Mr. Sweepy do his thing? Is
it's a shortcut.
It's a shortcut.
He uses the one shortcut.
Yeah, he got a suggestion for send this text message to Micah Sargent. Can you make Mr. Sweepy do his thing? And then I will launch the app, go in, hit the button, and then it does its thing. But Amazon will soon support Amazon, the virtual assistant, as a way to, or Ziggy. So you can say, Ziggy, it's time to vacuum or whatever, and then it will vacuum. So I'm happy about that. That's great. Yeah, there's my review. That was Hands-on Tech episode 132, recorded March 10th, 2021.
Nice.
Now that I'm talking about dates, I just had a realization. Today, is it today? I think it's today, yeah. Today is my 2-year anniversary at Twit. I've been working for 2 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah. That's exciting.
I was just thinking, it's almost been 2 years doing the show, so that makes sense.
Show title, Make Mr. Sweepy Do His Thing. It certainly doesn't feel like, well, sometimes it feels like 2 years whenever, like, because of the pandemic, but coming back now, it's like, wow, 2 years have already happened? That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, especially how many months in the studio, though? Like 6?
Right, exactly.
Like, yeah,
I think about a year before we all had to go
that's
home.
fair.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to some Google stuff. Up first with Google, we've got Google's redesigned Wear OS. And actually, we just talked about this not too terribly long ago on Tech News Weekly. I was really bummed to hear this. Google is working on a redesigned version of Wear OS. And one of the things that they've done is they've partnered with Samsung in this new way to kind of try to bring these platforms together as opposed to separating them and keeping them apart. And unfortunately, there aren't many smartwatches that are going to support this redesigned version of Wear OS. And so if you buy a Wear OS watch right now, you may be left in the dust for this redesign. And so there's been kind of encouragement to, or discouragement rather, to purchase any new Wear OS devices right now because you might not have one that's compatible going forward.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a bummer, I think, for folks who, you know, would like to join the party. And I do think that in this case, it speaks to the kind of more focused way that, like, there's a reason why the Apple Watch has been as successful as it has been, and why it continues to be at the top of the charts when it comes to all-purpose wearables. And like, I feel for the folks at Google, the developers at Google, the engineers at Google who make the Wear OS software. I know that's repetitive, Wear OS, or it's redundant, but anyway, who make Wear OS, and I feel for the hardware manufacturers who make these devices because of the different ways that you know, all the different places that Google supports oftentimes results in a lot of devices being left in the dust. And so the list is kind of ridiculous right now, and none of the watches are the ones that Google is it Google, or I can't remember now. I'm struggling to remember, but Jason pointed out, like, none of the premium Wear OS watches that you would expect are on this list.
Yeah.
And so that's not good.
Do you know, are the like future versions of those same watches on the list, or it's just like the
Not
old
currently.
models? Yeah. Interesting. That is definitely different. That's what I was just trying to, I was trying to think of my like snarky immediate knee jerk reaction. And it was like, not a ton of people bought these anyways. And so I think that is at least I would, if I was in that market, I would rather lose out and have to switch for there to be a future as opposed to not. And so at least it's going forward. I'm not sure. Maybe I'd feel differently if I was in that situation and you're getting attached to specific lines. But
I hope that folks who are buying non-WatchOS devices are getting Fitbit devices. Because
yeah, that's also it.
At least those are well supported and are, well done, with plenty of developers who work on it and who make sure that it's going to continue to be a thing that's worthwhile, versus some of these that you might not get to.
Yeah. You want to talk about this smart fan? I feel like it's an interesting.
Any fan of smart tech today is a smart fan.
Oh my gosh.
I approve. Thank you, Kevin.
The SmartMi outdoor oscillating pedestal fan 3 100-speed portable quiet standing fan.
It's a pedestal
There's
fan,
more,
not a tower fan. Woo!
Yeah, that's what I was trying to remember. Would Micah approve of this or not? Because it doesn't. I guess that's.
I'm
was trying to
ordering a
remember.
stamp.
is the
Micah
difference?
Approved.
Yeah, I love it. Is the difference with what's the difference with the tower fan again?
So that fan right there will almost certainly have these little white, because it's white for folks who are listening, if it's a white fan, it will almost certainly have these little white clips around the outside that you can sort of lift. And in doing so, you can take the cage off of the front of the fan, and then you can whoop, 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 clean those blades and pop that back on. And then you are good to go. Whether that's a metal cage or a plastic cage, I'm not sure. And then also you can, wait, I forgot now what I was going to say. But essentially, and then also the style of fan makes it more of an air circulator rather than just a fan that is like creating its own air, which the people who are pedantic right now are screaming at me, but I think you know what I mean. And then the tower fan, the problem with tower fans is that they are nearly impossible to clean. And so you will only clean them very rarely because of how ridiculous it is to clean them. And a lot of them have proprietary screws, or I should say near proprietary screws. Like I had to use a special iFixit drill bit kit to even get into the fan. And then to actually clean it was this whole process where I ended up having to go to the store and look at a put together model so I could make sure I put it back together right. And so I said, well, I'm never going to do that again. And so then suddenly you have a dirty fan that is spreading more particulates all around the room. Yeah, tower fans are trash. You don't want to use tower fans. And so when it comes to actually making a difference in your space in terms of air quality and also in terms of cooling or heating, you want to have a fan that circulates the air as opposed to one that is like generating air movement. And so one of those circular ones is most often a better choice. And so this fan that happens to be smart and looks like the front will come off of it for you to clean is a good choice.
Yeah. And the main thing is it works with Google Assistant. So I feel like I still feel like sometimes I'm just like, man, wouldn't that be amazing if this product existed? And it does. And I could just buy it, but I'm cheap and have my old fan from years ago and things like that. So
I mean, in years, you could probably just plug in and use a smart switch with it, right?
Yes. I have like the tiniest little box fan that I don't think it does anything, especially compared to the amount of noise it generates just to do nothing. So,
do you have one of those? It's like a rectangle and it's got the two fans in it.
It's just one of those fans, so it's even smaller. Oh. Yeah, it was like from college, I'm pretty sure. So it was like to get the bare minimum. I just have fully opening windows and things like that, and I don't think I'd necessarily want a standing fan like this. This one is $140, so it is like a full smart. It's like sleek metal with a whole
battery.
Yeah. That was the other part, is that you can move it around and then just like use it for a while. So I thought it was actually pretty interesting, but you will pay for the smart part of it.
Comfortable, quiet breeze. Portable.
It is like a
portable wind with you. Now I'm imagining taking this on a bus and just sitting it down in front of me on a city bus.
That's a pretty like good ad though.
Or going to a concert and just like, oh man, it's hot here.
Like out in the field. Just like,
going to church. Woo! All the other folks around me have
cool
those.
Looking. Like it's a very sleek.
It is. It's pretty nice. Yeah.
It's a smart
That's how they get you.
Fan of the future.
I guess I probably couldn't take it on an airplane. I don't know what kind of battery it's using. Look at the modes.
They're like, why do we have to make a regulation for this? Come on, dude.
You, sir. You are what's wrong with the world. All right. Tell me about the best hidden Android shortcuts.
I love this article because first of all, they just have the best titles they made little terms for all of the little gestures, and it's not actually shortcuts. So I feel like I always have to have a disclaimer if I mention something related. It's just like gestures and things like that. But I think it's especially if you are on Android, something worth checking out, because I love workflow on a device where you can just move between things seamlessly. And some of these are just like in any sort of menu, you can just tap and slide and select something instead of tapping once and then tapping again on another spot, or how you like control the cursor and things like that. So I don't want to, they've got the titles are like the speedy delete, the calendar controller, the photo flyer. So people can check out in the show notes the link and go through all of them if you've got Android. But I thought this is just a good tip for kind of getting some more out of your Android device.
Nice. And then another bit of, I think this one's more kind of understanding how each of these works and the difference. And I would go with similarities between the two. An article from, I think, last week, not last month, where they have compared in Popular Science Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. And it's called What Android Auto and Apple CarPlay Can and Can't Do. I like this more as kind of a rundown of the features on their own versus a comparison, because that's kind of unhelpful for all of the people who are all locked in on one or the other platform.
Exactly.
So with this piece, it kind of goes into some of the things that you might expect from an in-car media entertainment system, and what each of them, I guess we'd call that an infotainment system, and where they might be lacking.
Yeah, I thought that. So I'm trying to find the article too. Stephen Aquino just wrote something for Forbes about just the accessibility of something like CarPlay, especially for people and Android Auto, but it was just specifically because he uses CarPlay for people who are in the car itself, because that is a major difference in just being able to control some of the infotainment type system. Oh, nice. You got it up. I'm scrolling on Twitter trying to find it. But just how that can make a huge difference in being able to interact with what's going on and things like that. So also check that story out.
Nice. All right, up next, we've got some stuff about Siri. What's first in Siri? Oh, I seem to remember someone saying that they were going to be putting together a piece for iMore about using Siri and shortcuts to control your Apple TV. That piece is available now, eh?
Yep. I just published it last Friday and went through all of the different actions and explained just how each of them work and how you set it all up. So trying to do some more detailed dives into specific sections of the Shortcuts app and also give examples of how I'd use it. I don't remember how much I did say last week, but just like turning on the screensaver is a pretty awesome one. Or I was explaining to someone on Twitter how you can use switch user account before different actions in your Apple TV shortcuts, so that if you have like a partner who's using their own shortcuts to turn on the TV, it can just turn it on and switch to their account automatically and have their up next list as opposed to your own and things like that. So that's pretty useful. Even just turning on caption. Yeah, we did mention captions because we were having that. You were making fun of me of like, why would you ever have captions off?
Yeah. Or just just people in general, not just you, just everybody who doesn't use captions.
Exactly.
They can ruin the punchlines of comedies.
That's true. That is very true.
Yeah, that actually, I mean, we specifically did that the last couple of days because it's like, this is kind of telling like what's about to happen in this dialogue, especially for dramas or something like that.
Spoilers don't really, so that's never bothered me, but I can see for some people how it would, because I think, so I will say, tend not to use captions in one specific thing, and I end up not watching these very much anyway, and that's stand-up comedy specials. I don't really enjoy those, but anywhere else, for me, even if the punchline ends up being kind of in the same line, I'll have a little chuckle internally as I've read the caption, and then it will play out loud, and then I'll have like a louder chuckle.
That's totally
my
fair.
brain just isn't bothered by it, but I totally understand why someone would not want to have captions on for it to ruin things. That's reasonable.
Sometimes I'm just like, why didn't you just make the captions different for that line? Like, do a teaser and then switch it once they say that one word on the caption. Like, have that programmed in. But I don't know why they wouldn't do that sometimes. But,
the different regulations surrounding captioning is often what ends up being the case. We had to, when I worked at Newsy, we had to take a class on caption regulation and closed caption regulation, and it's a doozy. So there are some things that do get in the way, and then there's also just the fact that unfortunately it is considered an afterthought in many ways, and so you have poor quality captions, or sometimes you have folks who aren't paying attention to or don't care about the way that the content should be done. And so you can always tell when it's
difficult.
I've
tried to do it for my subtitle on my videos, and there's just literally no tool for it also. So like, if people made some sort of technological solution that made it easier, I feel like this is actually something that there's tools like the script that I use that I can input my video feed, or like this podcast, for example, and it'll transcribe the entire thing. I feel like those should be used to create captions because it's significantly easier than it was even just a couple of years ago. So just a couple other things on the Apple TV shortcuts. There are a couple, like, you can open apps on the TV, which can include things like games or just the other apps that you might pretty much never otherwise use because you just mostly watch TV on there, like the fireplace or something like that. And then, and just like a shortcut menu that opens all of the various games that you might want to play can be pretty handy too. And then also you can use something like set playback destination to AirPlay to the Apple TV, which I feel like I always forget to do. And if it was just a big thing on my home screen, I'd probably use it more. And I guess the other thing... For what? Just like watching a YouTube video that I was brought down. One thing that happens to me is I'm constantly moving from my office downstairs to like make lunch or something, and then sitting in the TV room or whatever for a little while. And I always like, I'm like grabbing a different iPad or like getting back on my phone and then switching. And I need to get a little bit more just intentional with some of that, but that's when I'd use something like this.
I just have never found the controls to be very good for specifically for YouTube AirPlay. Exactly. Sometimes it takes too long to switch, and then sometimes if you hit pause, it takes too long to actually pause, and so it always ends up not being worth it.
Couple second delay. That's why, at least in theory, some of these shortcuts can just like make it a little bit easier because it'll do all that for you when you just use the voice command. But the big one with the other Apple TV things is that they work with HomePod, and HomePod can't do those things. You can't say open Netflix. And so you can just make a shortcut called open Netflix and then speak it out loud to the HomePod and it'll work. So like, this is the way to do that. And I feel like that's something, that people are going to want to experiment with more because there's going to be more and more that is possible through shortcuts. And I mean, I guess, is that the next story? Yes. Okay. Wow. What a segue that I didn't realize I was making is that they're literally taking away some Siri commands for third-party apps in iOS 15, mostly
like
because
what?
people didn't end up using them. Like some of the rideshare stuff, they're completely taking out, which used to be like the hallmark feature of, in theory, also, I'll say, like, I'm not on screen right now, but I'm shrugging because it's like people, I don't think anybody ever was like, oh, like order me a car. Like, even though it's the cool thing that James Bond would do, like you're not going to do it otherwise.
I guess though Uber
hasn't supported it for 3 years.
If you already supported it and developed it, why would you get rid of it?
I mean, I think I'm curious. This is an interesting question that I want to hear more from Apple about, specifically because I'm like in the Shortcuts realm. Is Shortcuts going to be the solution for this? There is a get ride action in Shortcuts now. Pretty sure that works with Uber. So like, you can do this with Siri
rewind,
in Shortcuts.
rewind. The misunderstanding. Yeah, sorry, Kevin. You don't have to rewind. So what you're saying, yeah, we'll rewind in post. Siri won't have this, but I was thinking you were saying that there was a shortcut that they were taking away. They're not taking away shortcuts. See, I get the two confused because we talk about Siri shortcuts. So, so specifically the Siri voice command for rideshare is going away, but support for it is still available via shortcuts. Yeah. Which in Siri theory means that you will still have that ability to.
Exactly. Okay. You can do it.
Now I understand.
I think so. It's like removed from Siri Kit, and now they have to use shortcuts intents to accomplish the same thing. What I'm curious about, though, is those don't work the same way. I can't just call up an Uber shortcut without having set it up first. And that's what Siri does. And so if everybody's going to have to set up everything that they want to use with Siri, either they need to tell us that, or they need to make it easier or make it automatic in some way. Pretty much how Amazon is doing with skills also now, with just the same thing of guessing, like, did you actually mean this? Mm-hmm. Or recommending, you're just like, I want to book a ride. And then they're like, here's a shortcut for getting a ride. Which service do you want to use? And then set it up and then add the shortcut to your library or something like that. And then you're good to go. Which totally could be possible. Like, that's a fairly simple couple step flow, but I would love it if you could set up shortcuts just with your voice and have that be something. So I'm curious. This is just weird that this is happening ahead of any sort of communication, but I'm curious if this would be something that would happen later this year.
What's interesting is that those integrations are still available in the Map app in iOS 15. There are, if you go into the settings on iOS 15 in particular, if you go into your settings and you go to the Maps thing, there are still both rideshare integrations and restaurant integrations. So for an example, took a trip and wanted to go to a restaurant. I typed in restaurants. I found one. It was a Hawaiian restaurant, and right from Maps, I was able to open table book the reservation. Mm-hmm. So they haven't completely removed the integrations for those. So it's a little odd that they are taking them away from Siri. But I guess if what could be the good thing about this is that they want shortcuts to be the method of integration going forward, and they want to focus development on that being the method of integrating with third-party things going forward.
Totally.
So if that's the case, then this more focused area is much better than having these things all spread out everywhere and throwing a little bit of development at this and a little bit of development at that. Mm-hmm. If it's all there, I like that. I think that's good. So
I think that's pretty much it. Especially, I think, I don't have specific quotes, but from the developer sessions over the years, it's kind of talked about how, like, they initially started out building a set of predefined things And then now you can define your own as developers, and that Apple as a company would never be able to define every use case. And so I think, especially as they moved into shortcuts and usage was low on the existing ones, they're removing some of these things. But like some of them are like creating a task list or deleting a task. I mean, it does make sense that like I'm probably not going to do that with Siri most of the time, but it is still odd to see without that reassurance. It's like, oh, but you can still do this all through shortcuts. And that's a recommendation that you continue these types of behaviors if you want to do that, because they did lay out like the types of shortcuts that developers should make that include something that's just like a task that you want to open and the ability to use that task or create a task or delete it or update it, and like a very specific categories, which I loved to see. That I was like, thank you, because I want more developers to make real shortcuts that do stuff like this, not just like get a ride from one place to another, but let me choose all of the different places and get my favorite places and stuff like that. So I think it could be good for it, but it is just kind of odd to see that they like remove the Uber integration from Siri, which seems like the biggest thing. But again, it's like Uber removed it a couple years ago, and did I even notice that? No. So like nobody was using it anyways. So, or that's, I will say 9to5Mac suggested that that's the explanation for it, but we don't actually know.
Yeah, I always hesitate to
that's what I'm following.
Right. Yeah, you're being clear there, but just so that we could put that out there. It's always important to hesitate to suggest that because we don't use a feature that no one uses a feature, and it's always important to be mindful of that. All right. Is this a new article? Is there more new stuff that Siri can do in iOS 15 or?
No. Well, I don't know if this is one of the ones that Mac Rumors updates over and over again or something like that. But it's a article summarizing all of the changes to Siri in iOS 14, just about like on-device processing, offline support, some of like sharing things, especially with, what do you call it? I guess it's just called shared with you. So it's definitely interesting and it's worth checking out just because it's pretty hard to notice these kind of things as they just kind of fly by. Like even announce notifications when you're wearing headphones is something that I use now, and I have specific apps set up just to notify me and say out loud, like I don't know if this is a vanity thing or it's a motivation thing, but basically when somebody signs up for my membership, Siri tells me out loud, and I'm like, sweet. Like it's kind of just like a cool little thing, and I'm like, awesome. My goal is by the end of the year to have that, to turn that off because it's happening too much. So go sign up for my membership at MatthewCastanelli.com/membership.
Always be plugging.
Exactly.
ABP, y'all.
But I will say, as I tend to do, they are missing some stuff that is coming to shortcuts. And some of the cool things that they don't have in here is the ability for a shortcut to get what's on, I think it's called receive what's on screen, which is basically means when you run a shortcut and you have something open like Safari, and it can actually grab the current Safari page. So
how is this different from the face you're making?
Yeah. Remind me about this.
What does make this different?
It basically is that feature, but now you can actually do it in shortcuts. You weren't able to before. And so it was kind of, and also
what do you mean you weren't able to do it? Where did you do it?
I mean, in the past, you could just say like, remind me about this.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I kind of assumed.
Yeah, I misunderstood. So there's a feature in shortcuts, right, that lets you grab the current Safari tab, right?
Nope.
Like the current site? Oh, there isn't.
No, it's kind of wild that it hasn't been possible before. You can in Automator, and they brought that to shortcuts for Mac.
Oh, okay. So why did I think that was the thing? So wait,
it's been long. Well, so with Siri, you can say, remind me about
URLs?
This. Yeah, you can do the share sheet is what you're probably thinking of. You can share a page manually, but you can't say to Siri, like, save this to my notes.
Okay, so this is the difference between voice versus a share sheet button. Shortcut.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
All right.
But it's also, I guess, even if you ran it from, I haven't done full testing on all of the different inputs, but like if you ran it from Spotlight, it could also grab what's on the page, or if you did type to Siri, I guess also technically. But it basically just makes the content of any app functional as a shortcut, as opposed basically without using the share sheet, or even if the share sheet isn't present on that page. So I'm curious, actually, maybe I should test with mail messages, because one of the weird things is you can't share an email, but on the iPad, if you drag and drop an email into like a task manager, it'll add a mail deep link back to that thing. And so in theory with shortcuts, when you're in an email, you could grab that link and save it into your task manager or something like that, which is actually would be really nice. So I'm going to go test that, or like do it on the ad break or something like that. But there's also now in the new iOS beta, a return to home screen action for shortcuts, which is something that people have long wanted, because it's kind of weird sometimes to run a shortcut and then you're just like in the app still or something like that. Or if you were on the home screen and you ran a shortcut and it did something that opened an app, you don't want to stay in that app. You want to go back to your home screen. So it's kind of like a community, like we've wanted this for a long time and it's a good thing to see it. So in general, I hope Apple clarifies it a little bit more, but they are just improving the Siri capabilities of shortcuts. There's another one that's like stop and continue in the app and things like that, that I think will just make it clear how to use Siri with shortcuts, or shortcuts with Siri. And the titles all say, hey, SIRI, comma, the title of the shortcut, as if you're running it and things like that. So that'll be cool, especially if this is the way that you have to do a Uber ride and things like that going forward. I think people should start setting up more shortcuts. That's my recommendation. That's always going to be my recommendation.
All right. Anything there before we move on to Apple
no,
Watch?
I think that's pretty much it.
All right. You've got a great little piece here also from PopSci, Popular Science.
Another simple one.
That it just has some tips and tricks for you to master your Apple Watch. So if you feel like you haven't been getting everything you possibly could out of your Apple Watch, this PopSci article might help you. Also, I really love the photo they took. That's cool. Well, whether they took it or I don't know. Could be somebody else, but that's a cool
Do you
photo.
do the bedside mode for your watch? Like, do you charge yours next to your bed?
I do charge mine next to my bed.
I like that. That's definitely a nice one. I swear I didn't even put this in here just because they say to use shortcuts also, which you can do from the watch. And some of those Apple TV ones are actually pretty, if you use the show remote one, it'll show the remote on the Apple TV or on the watch, which is cool. And then one thing, go ahead.
I was going to say Apple did a video about the Find Your iPhone feature. That's still one of my favorite ones.
Just the pinging part, or
yeah, like if you lose your iPhone, then you can on the watch hit the button and it will help you find your iPhone. But the pro tip is if you press and hold on that pinging button, it will make a sound, but it will also make the LED flash on the back of your iPhone to give you a visual display of where your iPhone might be.
in the control center on the watch?
Yes. So for anybody who's watching who has an Apple Watch, swipe up from the bottom of your Apple Watch. And then there's a phone with some sound waves on the left and right side of it. That is the button for pinging your iPhone. If you tap on it, it will make your iPhone make a sound, even if it's silenced. But if you tap and hold, the LED for the camera flash that's on the iPhone will also light a couple of times or a few times as it makes the sound to give you a visual of where your iPhone might be.
Nice. I did not know that. I learned something new. That's exactly why I share, even though this can be a simple article, it is like the last one. I think Apple, I don't know why they did this, but you can share your watch faces, but you can only send it to someone in your contacts. And so I totally expected last year and even it still could happen. But like, oh, like check out my watch face. Let's all share our watch faces. I don't think I've seen a single person do this, because it's just, I think it's the same with Memoji, that it's just like, why is this in the Messages app and not a dedicated app where I could just share it anywhere? Like, I would use it all the time, and instead I just never think to use it. So I did not expect to come out with a harsh criticism there, but I would love to share my watch faces and not have to like go into the message and I'm going to send them to myself and then copy the link out and then do something. So I think this is something that is like, they have this huge opportunity on their hands, and it's limited in some weird way because they want to stick people into the Messages app. So please change that, Apple.
Yes. All right. There's a new app you can make use of called Stats. It will take your health data and put it in a widget on your home screen. I like these kinds of apps. I downloaded another one. I wish I could remember what it is now. It's been a while since I played around with it, but it's a lot like this. My phone and my watch are both collecting lots of health information on me, and I love that. And when I need to, I can go in and look at it and see what it's collected. But what's nice about these kinds of apps is that you get to see that information a little bit more regularly, and you can kind of check in on yourself a little bit more regularly. So this app is specifically meant for being a widget. You could have a whole screen that's devoted to your steps, your heart rate, your mindfulness, all the things that you're tracking with your Apple Watch and your iPhone through the Health app. This can be used to do that.
Yeah, this is great. This is also, I feel like I'm going to be recommending a couple of widgets like this over time, especially as we get closer to iOS 15, because my whole thing is that people should use tons more widgets and stick them in stacks and get this kind of information out. I really want to see, just in general, the health data that's in the Health app get more accessible, because I had a whole series, a whole set of shortcuts that used the actually useful suggestions from the Health app that when you go and look at anything like your caffeine data, it'll donate an action to the Shortcuts app that says just caffeine. And when you run it, it'll take you back there just so you can view your health stats. And I do random things like log my UV index when I go on outdoor walks, because I want to know. Yeah, exactly. I always feel like I love it. You're the best to do the show with, Micah, because sometimes I feel like I'm a total freak, and then you're like validation, and I'm like, yes. So
again, Micah approved. No, that's so important, and I think people don't pay enough attention to that. And as we continue to live on this earth whose atmosphere continues to be damaged by the things that we do, that's only going to become more important. So
I remember when people were like, what is AQI? What does that matter? And now it's like this guy was from San Francisco, and I saw a tweet about that, and I was like, now he definitely knows what that is.
Yeah, for sure. All right, what's next?
I got, oh, wow, of course. Why do I keep doing this and reversing my segues?
Yeah, just don't call them out. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just kidding. We'll edit that in post. How to check air quality index on your iPhone and Apple Watch, especially with iOS 15. This is going to get a little bit better because they do put an air quality display in the watch, which is nice. I guess I didn't realize that. Oh, no. Okay. That's an air quality reader app. I was going to say, I wonder if the Maps app in iOS 15 will do this, or the weather app will show air quality issues. I just haven't had any since then, but the widgets themselves being like, hey, it's smoky out. So I assume so, but there's a air quality reader app that you can get that has a widget also. And then the Apple Watch just comes in with the built-in complication, which is one of those nice like bar visualizations, and you can see across of it, which I think actually was helpful. It's helpful just because AQI is a weird number. It's like 0 to 100 is going from like fine to maybe you should be thinking about this. And then anything else from there is pretty much not great, but then it's just progressively worse. And I always thought too that oh, well, like 300 is the max or whatever. But last year with the fires and stuff like that, we were seeing like 500 and things like that. That is like, at least having that index is a good, I actually really value learning this stuff over time, because I can tell, like I can smell it in the air now when it's 65 or higher and things like that. And that just makes a difference, because if you just don't pay attention, you can be walking around outside and wheezing in the air without realizing that, oh, this is terrible to breathe in right now. Like I remember recommending on the show the app that converts the air quality index into how many packs of cigarettes are you smoking today, basically. And it's like anything over like 100 and you're having like a pack of cigarettes, it's like not good for you. So yeah, worth checking out.
Cool. Let's go ahead and move on to talk about a few HomeKit things before we head over to a big ol' reset you had to do in order to get things working. SmartMi also has an air purifier. I think we've talked about some of the different smart home pure air purifiers and air quality sensors before this one. I more had a chance to review. And so if you're looking for a HomeKit enabled smart air purifier, then you can check out this one to give you the opportunity to clean your air.
The article also does talk about the competition too, which is always good to check out as well.
Wire cuttery. Okay, Imore, I see you.
Yeah. So I think I still feel like it's a unknown thing that HomeKit has so many options like this now, that even last year we didn't seem like we had anything at all. So I'm glad to see, especially in the air quality realm, for a good reason, as we've recently referenced, that this kind of stuff is more automated. And if you've got a Google Assistant home too, you can get the standing fan and the air purifier, and then you're good to go.
Yes.
Same brand.
All right. Rosemary Orchard and I talked about the Aqara, a 3-in-1 HomeKit air quality monitor with an e-ink display on iOS today. The reason I bring it up is because she went in depth talking about this one, and then also another one that she was able to get through, what is Amazon, but outside of the U.S., and Alibaba. She was able to get through Alibaba.
A little different,
AliExpress. But yeah. And they offer these e-ink displays. This one's pretty nifty, and it is a HomeKit air quality monitor. So what I was saying before, and what I'll say here too, is that I like that Aqara is getting in line with the likes of Eve, who offer a lot of different HomeKit enabled accessories, so that you can kind of go to one place and get everything that you need from that one place in this kind of category. And so now you've got another one, Aqara, who can do this too, where you've got vibration sensors and contact door sensors and cameras, and now an air quality monitor. And then of course it's battery friendly, given that it is e-ink. So it'll last for a while, and it even includes a magnetic mount on the back.
Yeah, exactly. You like took the words out of my mouth. That I feel like I like have to buy something from Aqara soon, because they have so many options and so many just like unique devices like that. Especially like the e-ink thing, I think is something that I've been getting back into being interested about. Just getting my Kindle, and it's like, oh yeah, this is. If I could just have something that I rarely ever need to charge and provides that ambient information, I would probably do it. So worth checking out. And yeah, listen and or watch to iOS Today for all that. Nice.
All right. Anything else you want to mention before we head over into the next?
Just the quick one on the Maras light, just because did you order that lamp that we were referencing the other day? I still haven't picked it up, but I'm curious. No. They have a floor lamp now too for $80 that you can get. That's just like another HomeKit compatible thing. So pretty interesting. I want to get Maras things, like both of. There's so many of these brands now that it is like I want to get a whole bundle of these things, and for sure test them out myself. Nice.
All righty. let's go ahead and move along to talk about, well, sometimes you install betas, and sometimes those betas just break everything. And
someone had warned us.
Yeah, it's like
someone never tells you not to install betas.
I know. I don't understand why. Well, I just thought I can install this beta and nothing bad will ever happen to me ever. And yet, something bad happened to both of us. You happened to bring it up, and I said, oh my God, I just had to do that. And I know that the beta is messing up all of my HomeKit stuff. So tell us about what you had to do to get things working for you again.
I will apologize up front to Hue because I threw them under the bus, assuming that it was the Hue app when it actually saved my life. But the HomeKit app just unsynced every single home device from its location and room and scene and automation. So that was great. I only noticed like as I was getting in bed. And so it's one of those things where like none of your stuff works right when you need it. And then it's like, you go into the app and it's every single group of device also was unsynced and then named weird too. So that was fun. I assume you had the exact same thing.
Yeah. So what had happened was, for the longest time, I had in my living room a Philips Hue dimmer switch, and I have another one that's in my bedroom. And in the bedroom, surely you can't be serious. I'm distracted by funny jokes, but the one in the bedroom, it used Philips Hue's whole system, meaning that the on button turned on the lights in the bedroom, the off button turned off the lights in the bedroom, and the buttons in the middle, which are dimmer buttons, would either dim or brighten the lights respectively. And then hitting the button on the top repeatedly would switch it to different color scenes. Those are all Hue integrations. Those are all like set up within the Hue app, all part of the Hue bridge. But given Hue's ability to work with HomeKit, you can also configure these to work as HomeKit switches. So each of those 4 buttons can become whatever you want to do to control your smart home. And so the one that I had in my living room, because I have lights that aren't Hue lights in the living room, I had set up within HomeKit. So the top button would turn on all of the lights in the living room. The second button, which is normally a brighten, third being dim, and fourth being off, the second button would turn on some of the lights in the living room. That was like an at night, these are the lights we turn on. The third button would turn everything on, or would turn some lights on kind of night lightish. And then the fourth button would turn off all of the lights, be they Hue or whatever other lights I had in the living room. Well, I noticed that button stopped working. It would not, the one that I had in my living room would not turn on and off the lights. It wouldn't do anything anymore. I'd hit the button multiple times and it would not do anything. And if I opened the Home app on my iPhone, the button would sort of bounce and indicate that it had noticed that I'd pressed a button, but it wasn't doing the thing that it's supposed to do. And then I noticed that the Zigbee button that I have from Aqara that I have in my office, which one button turns on all of the lights in my office, set up for the studio lighting. I shouldn't say one button. One press does that. 2 presses turns everything off, and then press and hold turns on night lights in the office. None of those were working either. Some of them being Hue, some of them being other things. And yet again, if I looked in the app, it showed that it could tell that I was pressing buttons. So I realized it had to be something to do with HomeKit. And the only way I was able to get it to work was by completely removing. So yours did it automatically where everything was gone out of the Home app. For me, it didn't happen automatically. I went in and removed everything in order to get it working. And that was the only way I could get it working. But in the release notes for iOS 15 beta, we were warned that this would be an issue. And so we, should have, and in my case, when I realized that both of them weren't working, then I went, oh, this is definitely something to do with the beta. So it was just not, the HomeKit stuff just wasn't working. And so as I said, I removed everything, and then I took my iPad that I have that's not running beta to set it all up again. So I went room to room and set everything up again. And it took forever. And then I was reminded of that article that we wrote or that we talked about before about sort of running out of steam on wanting to reset up your smart home. Smart home setup fatigue. I was feeling that to the max. So yeah, that wasn't fun. And I can only imagine it wasn't too much fun for you either.
Can I show you the other fun detail about that aspect of the story?
Yeah, of course.
2 days ago, I took some time set aside and was like, I think I should redo all my HomeKit scenes. So I had literally just fixed all of this up and gotten it nice and tidy exactly how I want it right when it got destroyed.
No.
I will say at least I chose, when I saw this to happen, I took the sunny side approach, and I was like, at least now I know what I wanted because I did just think through it all. And so at least that was like the part that is harder sometimes than just actually doing it, even though it's still a pain in the butt to do all the little zoom in and flip around screens and then pair and unpair and things like that. But I do just remember, and I like decided that I didn't want some things and cut it down and know that there's just like a subset of scenes. And what did end up saving me, which is usually the complete opposite of the case, is the Hue app synced the data back into the HomeKit app. I went into the Hue app and that stuff was still there. And I did the thing where it's like pair up with HomeKit to get it, which usually ends up overwriting what's currently in HomeKit instead of actually syncing it. But at least it put the stuff back into the rooms. And I just had to recreate the groups and stick them in the scenes and the automation. I think the automations and the scenes still existed, but the devices were removed from them. So at least it wasn't as bad as it seemed, but it's still just like never fun. And also when I went into the Home Plus app to like restore from the backup that I was pretty sure I made, I just didn't have one. And so I didn't know why that didn't work. But I'm definitely going to be doing that and maybe making a copy of probably set up a shortcut to open this once a month or something like that and back it up so I have recent copies. But yeah, be forewarned. Turns out betas can cause issues. I love the snort. And then one other thing that I want to just share, because I want to just do it while I'm excited about it because I'm a dork. I'm doing all of my focus mode. This is a separate mini project, but I'm doing all my focus modes in iOS 15 and too many home screens and things like that. And one thing that I've had for years, but never really took advantage of, is NFC cards, which are just NFC chips, but they're little like credit cards instead, pretty much like any credit card or like a BART card or something like that. One reason is that they have better NFC capabilities. Like it does feel like I can like hold the phone near it. Ironically, you would imagine that would just happen no matter what, but it's like a couple inches away and it'll still register it. But for me, the big thing was I wanted a whole like deck of cards. And so I did it. And if you can't see on camera, I have a rainbow set of tape.
Tape.
Yeah.
Is that washi tape?
Washi
or
tape.
Washi tape, yeah.
From a nearby Daiso store. So it's like, thankfully, I love just that this little Japanese tape had all of the 15 colors that I wanted to use also, which is exactly like, it's basically decorative tape. But it's just, for me, a little signifier. Like this one, the grayish one is my shortcuts. And then the pink, there wasn't a red, so pink is videos. Like yellow is research. And I have all of these things color-coded to the colors and shortcuts. And my whole life revolves around these colors and things like that. So it is like, I have a little, like, I got to get a little carrying case or something like that. And then I can just pull it out and swap focus modes. And I'm trying to get it.
What did you do before you had these cards? What's the way for you to activate it? Is it swipe, control center, choose the focus mode?
Yeah, there is a control center thing. So like this is honestly pretty excessive, like just to change the modes. But part of it is that I've been trying to figure out, there's also shortcuts automations for focus modes. And so when you switch into a mode, you can have something happen automatically, or there's a shortcut action to set a focus mode. And so I've been trying to figure out, when does it make sense to use which one? Because if I just change it manually and something always happens in the background, like that's got to be something that I always want to happen. Otherwise, it's going to be annoying. And then, so like a good example is the Apple Watch. I also, you can have 50 Apple Watch faces, and I have like 18 of them also for all of my home screen, my personal ones and my work ones. And I've tried to set those up as automations so that anytime I just switch focus modes, the watch face changes too. But it just kind of doesn't work. Like, I'm not sure if it's one of those things where, I mean, it's probably because I have like 20 of them. And so like, I'm like switching in between focus modes and the watch just like can't keep up. Like in general, shortcuts connecting and just watch data transfer to the phone isn't as immediate. It's like anytime you raise your wrist, it'll be there because it just does it on a regular schedule, but like it's not always instant or things like that. But it's kind of like, even do you always want, I don't always want it to switch. I think I literally like kill my battery life is what it is. I think it's switching so much and setting so many automations that it's just like trying to do too much on the watch for no reason. And so I wanted a more intentional shift that otherwise I can just do the manual thing. But like when I tap one of these cards, it would also change the lights around me to like a similar color and do the watch face. And then the other thing was, there's an action in Shortcuts called split screen apps. And also the open app action got slide over support. So you can, what I wanted to do was anytime I changed to video focus mode, it would open up like YouTube and YouTube Studio with notes in slide over. But if I just change to that on my phone, is my iPad just launching apps constantly and like random stuff is happening? I don't necessarily want that as an automation. And so I thought like these cards could be a way of like, this is like go full on into this mode versus just kind of the more casual use. And I also just wanted to do it. Like I just had the cards and I had the tape and I was like, oh yeah, like I sent a photo to a group chat that I'm in. I was like, why am I like this? But also I want to do it. It's like, I have a very maximalist approach of like, I want to test all of this and see what works. And it's just kind of cool. And it like is visually appealing. So like I enjoy it and that's good enough for me. So
yeah,
just want to share with everybody. It's like fun, smart home experiments. And I want to do more with NFC tags and make like official recommendations. Everybody should set up these ones and that kind of stuff. So this is kind of the super nerd side of it.
Indubitably. All right, let us move on to our final segment of the show, our picks of the week. I'll go first this time to give Matthew a chance to breathe there for a second.
I was going to say, I'm out of breath, actually.
My pick of the week is a simple one. It's not a smart device per se, but it is a handy thing to have, and it's not very difficult to do. But I will say this before I say what it is. If you do not have experience working with electrical instruments or doing any kind of electrical work in your home, then you need to make sure that you hire an electrician to do this, or you figure things out as needed. So my suggestion of having this product is not a suggestion that you should take to your walls and use this if you don't know what you're doing. There we go. Now that's out of the way. $20 is Anker's USB wall outlet. They have this one, which is $20. They have another one, although last I looked, it was out of stock, that has USB-C port and a USB-A port. This one is fine for me, though, because if I'm charging USB-C stuff, I'm typically like, those are the ones that are in my office. Those are ones that are in places where I've already got all those wires figured out. I bought this for the common area in my home where I want to use cables that are not my more expensive cables or not the ones. And so typically they have a USB-A port on one side and then Lightning on the other or USB micro. So this goes into one of, wherever you have a plug in place of it, and it will work as a way to charge USB devices. So very nice. You get your normal 2 plugs, but you also get 2 ports. Plug in your USB device and you can charge whatever it is. In my apartment or my townhome, I've got the kitchen counters. It has kind of this raised area, and then the counters go back even farther. So it's like a double stacked counter, so to speak. One counter out here, and then farther back is another counter, and then there's a window. And so in that raised area between the 2 counters, it's just this little bit of wall, this little bit of flat wall, and in it is a plug or a set of plugs that's turned sideways. And so I was able to just take that out and replace it with this. And so now there's counter space up top where you plug in 2 USB cords and you can charge an iPhone, you can charge other devices. When I need to bring in my outdoor security camera for charging, I can do that there instead of having to go all the way upstairs to plug it in and charge it. So these are really handy. And I think in a home that's my own, every single one of my plugs is going to be some form of this. But for here, for $20, having 2 USB options is really quite nice. And then in the chat, Scooter X is sharing, there's an option from Leviton that you can also check out that has USB Type-C. I have used the Leviton ones in the past. When I lived in my gigantic house in Springfield, Missouri, that I miss so much, 3 bedrooms. Nobody connected to me at all, and for far, far, far less money than I pay now.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, so much less money than I pay now. And it had I used some Leviton ones there that had USB Type-C, USB Type-A to use in the spot. So yeah, you can find these from different companies. I would recommend Leviton. Anchor is a good one. But don't go for random third-party ones that are don't have some sort of kind of long history of doing these things, because it's not safe.
Like when you were talking about your counter ledge, I was like, oh, you could have it on there and have your chargers and also plug in your toaster and microwave. And then I was like, does this work with like that kind of stuff with that much electricity at the same time? Microwaves
tend to be on their own. Yeah, they tend to be on their own breaker, because they do require so much power. And exactly. I don't know about your house since you have such an old house, but I wouldn't even be surprised if that's like required. But certainly it's been my experience that every house I've ever lived in, microwave has its own breaker. So what I could use it for, because there were 2 places where I thought about putting it. The place where I did put it, and the other place where I've already got coffee grinder and the tea kettle plugged in, and then I could also have it there. But I just didn't want it there because there was much more open space where I ended up using it. But yeah, you can. It's enough to draw. You just have to make sure that overall you're not drawing too much power. That's what causes the breaker to flip. All right. Somebody says, Eric Deckman, I've looked at those, worked to put them in. Who knows how long they last, and I can just put a multi-charger on the counter. Yes, it is work to put them in. For me, I like that I didn't have to then have a wall wart. That's my big thing. I hate wall warts. I really do not like wall warts. And I don't mind doing the work if it means that I don't have a honking thing sticking out of my wall. It's convenient. It also means that I don't have even the opportunity to run the risk of potentially having a little bit of frustration towards someone who unplugs and moves said charger, and then I can't find where it is. If it's built into the wall, there's no moving it. So I have lots of reasons why I feel that's better. But yours are perfectly valid for why you feel that a multi-charger is a better option for you. So yeah.
Yours are purely theoretical, of course.
Yes,
That never
entirely
happened.
theoretical, hypothetical, potential for someone, but not for me, ever having happened ever. $19.99, pretty good price, and you get some USB-A things in your wall. All right,
Nice.
It's your turn.
Mine is the Playdate from the folks at Panic, who are Mac developers, I guess. But this is now a video game hardware and service. I don't know how you would define it necessarily, but it's a product that you can get. They're doing batch orders. So the first batch, which I did manage to get into, which is cool, is shipping in 2021, and they're making another, basically based on how orders are going now, they'll make another larger batch later on, so you can get in on that. But it's a little Game Boy-like handheld console that also has this fun little crank on it as one of the input mechanisms. And part of the, I don't know, it's not a gimmick, but like part of the whole deal is that it comes with 20 games. And then after a certain amount of time, season as they call it, those games will basically go away and you'll get a new set of games. And so it's kind of a future retro like game console that's a lot more, it's like not nowhere near 4K quality or something like that. It's supposed to be kind of not 8-bit, but still looking retro type of games, and trying to use the new input mechanism in interesting ways. Like in some of them, the crank scrolls the time forward and backwards in the screen that you're working on. Or I don't know if every single one will use it, but basically other developers can come in and like get into their game queue and make games for it too, which is kind of cool. And so it's a neat little handheld kind of, it seems like the antithesis of never-ending Xbox online games and stuff like that you can play forever. It's like a fun little thing that you can play and enjoy and beat all of the games, and then you'll get another set later on, sort of thing. And it's bright yellow. They've got a purple cover and like a whole yellow speaker system thing that you can like mount to it that'll integrate with I don't think the service is called Poolside FM anymore, because I think
it's
there's
called,
some sort of copyright.
What is it called now? Sweet Side?
Yeah.
Pool Suite.
Yeah. So they're it's like chill songs that sound like
chill songs, bro.
Miami in the 80s dance songs and stuff like that. It's actually really cool music. And so it's like a fun kind of indie partnership where this little thing can be mounted to a speaker and then become a summertime Bluetooth device thing. So it's a very interesting product, and it's kind of an experiment from the folks at Panic doing a first thing of hardware and kind of the social aspect with the indie gaming community and things like that. So it's pretty cool. I'm excited to get mine. I'll probably make a video or something. I don't know if that's like
pre-ordered. When are you supposed to get it?
I don't think they tell you yet, but I think I'm in order number like 1,300 or not 1,300, 13,000. So I'm later in the batch, but I'm still in the first one at least. So there was only 20,000 in the original set. So who knows if they're going to be shipping them in groups or all at once or what. But yeah, I'll try to do a little bit. I don't know if that's like a spoiler to do a stream where you just play the games on it, and so people don't. I don't know.
People have the opportunity, the ability to tune in or not tune in. So no, that's not a spoiler. As long as you say that's not a spoiler.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's just kind of. I think the joy would be just kind of exploring these random games, but I think that's what would be fun, is just trying it for the first time and just the kind of like delight of trying to play around with something like that. So I thought it's pretty cool. And it's $199 for or $179 for the standalone thing. And then if you get the little cover, it's $199. So pretty neat. And I don't think the speaker is on sale. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
all right. That takes care of that. We've reached the end of another episode of Smart Tech Today. So I will tell you, you can send your questions. We're starting to collect some questions, so we'll have to do another Q&A episode. So
when I get back.
Yes, exactly. So next week, Rosemary Orchard will be joining me for Smart Tech Today. But if you have questions, get those in. Now's your opportunity. STT@twit.tv. We record new episodes every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 2030 UTC. You head to twit.tv/live to check us out live. But the best way to get the show is by subscribing to it by going to twit.tv/STT and subscribing in audio or video format on your provider of choice. I should also mention Club Twit. If you'd like to get all of our shows ad-free, well, check out Club Twit. For $7 a month, you get every Twit show with no ads. You get access to the exclusive Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else. And you can join the awesome members of Club Twit in our members-only Discord server. Head to twit.tv/clubtwit if that sounds like something you'd like to check out. All right, Matthew Casanelli, where do folks follow you online?
You can go to matthewcasanelli.com, or you can check out, I'm going to be redesigning my homepage sometime soon, but I've got all my shortcuts and my newsletter and everything there. And I've been posting more member notes, like how to do my whole crazy Stream Deck setup and everything. So check it out. What about you?
You can find me at Micah Sargent on many a social network, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee, CHIHUAHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the many places I exist online. All right, I guess until next time, we will say goodbye to everyone and their smart assistants. See ya.
See y'all.
You may have heard about this story, but are you familiar with the story behind the story? Well, every week on Tech News Weekly, my co-host Micah Sargent and I, Jason Howell, speak to the people who are making and breaking the biggest tech news of the week. We're talking with journalists, we're talking with industry veterans, often we're talking with the people who are responsible for the story. Don't miss Tech News Weekly at twit.tv.